Hello and welcome to Gas City Gaming's Aether Revolt set review. In this video we'll be taking a look at all the colorless cards and lands in the set that we can take a look at. As always guys, I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a pro player, I'm not making top 8s or anything crazy like that. These are just my opinions on these cards, mostly in a limited context, but if I think they'll make a splash in Standard or Modern, I'll try and mention that as well. So for now, we're going to start. Our first card for this portion of the review is right there, Aegis Otamatone. There's a whole automaton cycle, this being the first one. Aegis Otamatone costs 2 for a 0/3 artifact creature construct at common. You can pay 4 and a white to return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. I've paid 2 for an 0/3 before. It doesn't always feel good. I'd rather pay 2 for a 1/3 with better ability on it. The fact that this costs 5 as well later in the game can set off your Revolt stuff. Maybe you have the Revolt enchantments, okay. But to pay 5 in order to do that, there's a white enchantment, if you go back and watch our white set review, that costs 1 to bounce the enchantment. I'd rather play that, and I'd rather pay that cost. We're going to be moving through these a little more quickly because there's a lot more artifacts than any other color of card in this. So just to prepare you guys, we might not go in depth on all of these as we have with some of our other set reviews if you've watched those. So Aegis Otamatone, might play one of it in my limited deck, but don't see it going any further than that. Aether Harvester, however, is a 3 generic mana for an artifact, a rare artifact vehicle. It's a 3/5 when it becomes a creature. It has flying, and says when Aether Harvester enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. You may pay 1 energy. Aether Harvester gains lifelink until end of turn, and has crew 1. I'm going to explain vehicles. If you've never played with vehicles before, if this is kind of your first getting back into Magic into Limited, vehicles are an artifact. So I play this. It is a artifact that sits on the field with no power and toughness. It's an artifact vehicle. That's it. 3 mana artifact vehicle, has all its text on it. But like it says down there at the bottom for the crew mechanic, crew 1, tap any number of creatures you control with total power 1 or more. This vehicle becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So it becomes an artifact creature and then gains its power and toughness of its 3/5. If you have something that says destroy target creature with power 2 or greater, it wouldn't hit this. This would not be a valid target until it becomes crewed, until it becomes a creature. Crewing is also one of those mechanics that once it happens, it's kind of the way I like to say it. It's like a grenade that's been thrown. Once I tap something to activate crew, that's going to happen now. If I tap something to activate crew and you say in response I'm going to kill what you tapped, oh, now it's not a vehicle. Sorry, the grenade's been thrown. It's gonna go off. The ability's been activated. It's gonna be crewed. I've tapped to pay that cost already, right? So Aether Harvester on its own for a crew 1. How many times did I say that you're gonna get your servo? You're gonna crew a vehicle. This is probably one of the better vehicles in the set. Probably one of the best because it has flying. It's evasive. You can give it lifelink. You can crew this with that servo that you keep back. You can crew this with your 1/3 that you're leaving back. I see this being a player in Standard with Copter gone. I think it's going to be taking its place. Giving it lifelink fairly easily as well, at least 2 times, because it fuels itself with lifelink. It's a flyer, so it's going to take care of any flying threats. It's even with one of the better removal spells in the set, Fatal Push, you have to get its Revolt triggered before you can kill Aether Harvester. Play it in Limited. It's going to see play in Standard. I don't see it going past there, but definitely going to see play in Standard. And play it, pick it, play it, and you'll be happy playing it in your Limited formats as well. Augmenting Otamatone is our second automaton. It's 1 generic mana for an artifact creature construct for common. It is a 1/1. It has 1 generic and a black. Augmenting Otamatone gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Reminds me of Sludge Crawler from the most recent Zendikar block. It could still be good. I did have it in my pool with some other iffy black cards. I didn't play it just because, like, if I'm sinking my mana into this, it means I'm not progressing my board state. So I play this on turn 1. If I don't have any 2-drops, I'm okay pumping it to a 2/2. But the lack of ingest that's this doesn't have, that Sludge Crawler has, was what led me to want to play Sludge Crawler a lot. versus this doesn't have that. So, I mean, if you're stretching and you really want to include an artifact, but your creature count is kind of low and you need cheap creatures, then play it. But if I'm being kind of picky, like I didn't play it, it didn't make the cut for me. So, not too high on Augmenting Otamatone. Barricade Breaker is a 7-mana artifact creature juggernaut at uncommon. It is a 7/5 with Improvise. It attacks each combat if able, and does have Improvise. We'll go over Improvise. Your artifacts can help you cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you've done activating mana abilities pays for 1 generic mana. So if you have 3 artifacts in the field, you can tap all of those and only technically pay 4 mana for a Barricade Breaker. Paying 4 mana for a 7/5 seems pretty good. It's going to kill a blocker or 2 at the very least. It would definitely be my curve topper. Paying 7 for this doesn't feel that good, but paying 5 for it feels pretty good to me. Because like the Improvise helping you get it out cheaper. I would play a copy of this. It's not going to be like the, oh my goodness, I opened the Barricade Breaker, slam that over the rare in a draft. But I'd be happy playing a copy. It'd be okay. There's lots of stuff I would pick over it. If you have something else that's going to fit the strategy of your deck a little more narrowly, then I would pick that over this, or maybe even a good removal spell over this. But overall, a solid creature. Not going to see any standard play, but solid in your limited formats. Cogwork Assembler is a 3 generic mana artifact creature assembly worker. It's an uncommon. It is a 2/3. It has an ability. It says 7 mana. Pay 7 generic mana. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact. That token gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So just like any of our other colors that we've talked about, here's our colorless 2/3 with an ability. I'm happy at that rate. Then you also get the clone effect. Note this doesn't say an artifact you control. Just as an artifact, your opponent plays a Gear Hulk, you get a copy of that Gear Hulk for a turn. That seems pretty good. And you just whatever your best artifact on the field is, you get a copy of it. Don't expect to be getting that ability off a lot, because again, 7 mana to get an okay ETB effect. It could, again, sometimes it's going to be bigger than others, but to 7 mana just to get an enter the battlefield effect that somebody can usually chump, and it just copies target artifact. It doesn't give you target creature, just an artifact. So it's kind of a limited ability. This would be one of my last creatures. Like if I'm a little low on creatures, this would be one of the last ones, because I don't want to play this card to rely on it to get its ability. That's not why I play this. If you want to play this card to rely on it, get that 7 mana off, you play it on turn 3, it's going to be another 4 turns before you can clone something. And that doesn't give me the best feeling in the world. So Cogwork Assembler could make the cut in a sealed deck, but it's just going to sneak under there. And if it does make the cut, I don't necessarily have the best feeling about that deck. Consulate Dreadknot. So this is the guy that we want to put some of those enchantments on that crew a vehicle for us with those enchantments. So Consulate Dreadknot is a 1 generic mana, uncommon artifact that's a vehicle. It has crew 6, so you have to tap a total of 6 power of guys in order to crew the Consulate Dreadknot, and it is a 7/11. So in the ideal world, you shouldn't really pay 6. I wouldn't play this if I didn't have one of those enchantments that crewed a vehicle for me, because it doesn't have any evasion on its own, doesn't have trample, doesn't have flying, doesn't have anything like that. First strike, nothing. And if I didn't have, I believe, siege modification or aerial modification, unless I have one of those cards, I'm not even considering putting this in my deck. Even then, it's going to be a one-of that I feel kind of iffy to do. Like when I talked about those cards, I'd rather put those modifications on a vehicle that I already have that is going to be good, like the Aether Sphere Harvester. I'd rather play siege modification on that, right? So, Consulate Dreadknot, it's the magical Christmas Land card. You play this, you put siege modification on it, and you got yourself a 10/11 first strike, and you're just having fun. But I did see that happen once or twice in my pre-release, but I went to 3 pre-releases. I only saw that happen a couple times, and it just seems a little too inconsistent, I guess is the nice way to put it, for me to want to play a whole lot of. Consulate Turret is a 3 generic mana artifact at common that says tap, you get an energy counter. You can tap it to pay 3 energy in order to shock target player. At my pre-release, a guy did have that enchantment that cloned these things, so he had a mess of them, and he was like tapping them, and he was doing like at least 2 a turn, if not 4 every turn, because he could tap multiples to get energy and tap one to shock, and it was kind of nuts. But obviously that's not going to happen to everybody. This, I had a copy of this on my sideboard. I brought it out once against a deck that was a little more dirtily, and it did 4 damage to the guy because I did have some other cards that produced energy, but it's not something I feel I wouldn't main deck it unless I have a really heavy energy strategy, or I have like that enchantment where I can get multiples of these. I wouldn't main deck it in that case. Just not too high on the Consulate Turret either. Crackdown Construct is 4 generic mana for a uncommon artifact creature construct. It is a 2/2. It says whenever you activate an ability of an artifact or creature that isn't a mana ability, Crackdown Construct gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So as an example of that, we'll take a look just at our turret again. Those tap abilities are activated abilities. I tap it to activate its ability. So I tap this for an energy. Crackdown Construct here gets +1/+1 until end of turn. This will see play in Standard. I would probably play this if you have a few activated abilities. I would put this in your Standard deck, but if you don't have very many, leave it out because you don't want to pay 4 mana for a 2/2. That's my kind of limited review of it. But in Standard, it's going to see play. I have my playset of Wandering Fumaroles already. If you're not aware, Wandering Fumarole is a land that you can pay 4 mana to turn into a creature. I believe it's a 1/4 when you turn it into a creature. Then you may pay 0 mana to trade its toughness and power. So that's an activated ability. I pay 0, this happens. That's an activated ability. So when I turn that into a creature, I can activate that ability infinitely, as much as I want, and give this Crackdown Construct as many +1/+1 until end turn as I want. You know, like when you're playing Magic, you can't say I do this infinitely. You have to pick a number. You have to pick a just arbitrarily large. I do this 847,000 times. Okay, my Crackdown Construct's an 847,002/847,002. So attack with it. Servo. Okay, done. But it's going to see Standard play because it's part of that combo, and it even goes in the same deck as the Saheeli Rai Felidar Guardian combo. So it even goes in the same Jeskai deck. So, but good card in Standard because of that. Remember I talked about Felidar Guardian possibly being banned because of its Felidar Guardian is just kind of an instant win the game combo. Crackdown Construct, you still have to attack with it and get through with it. While there are cards that do that make something unblockable, so you're turning into a 3-card combo, which they might not ban. But good card in Standard, limited in the right deck with the good amount of activated abilities could be good as well. Daredevil Dragster is a 3 generic mana artifact vehicle at an uncommon. It has crew 2 and it's a 4/4. At end of combat, if Daredevil Dragster attacked or blocked this combat, put a velocity counter on it. Then if it has 2 or more velocity counters on it, sacrifice it and draw 2 cards. It's not bad. I did see it out there. People were playing it and it was doing decent work. Because you get to draw 2 cards after a couple turns with it, and then you get your whatever you're crewing it with, you just get to use that as your regular creature again. So it's okay card. It's not going to see any Standard or constructed play or anything. But it was definitely good. It was doing work in some limited. So I do like it. There are vehicles in here that are better than it that I would rather play, but if you're kind of limited on your vehicle selection, this can definitely fill a hole for you. Filigree Crawler is 4 generic mana for a common artifact insect. It's a 2/2, and when Filigree Crawler dies, create a 1/1 Ornithopter artifact creature token with flying. That's a long sentence. 4 mana for a 2/2 doesn't always feel good. 4 mana for a 2/2 that when it dies makes 1/1 flyer feels slightly better, but I didn't play it. Because for 4 mana I can do a lot more powerful things for 4 mana than play a 2/2. And even then for 4 mana for a 2/2, if it came in with a 2/2 and a 1/1 at the same time, I'd rather it be that than when it dies. I don't pay 4 mana for 3 power and toughness now. To me is better than when this blows up and turns into a little 1/1 dork kind of thing. So I got one, I never played it. So I get no Standard. If I'm not playing in limited, most of the times I'm not playing in Standard, and this would be that situation. Foundry Assembler is 5 generic mana for a common artifact creature assembly worker. It is a 3/3 with Improvise. So this one, like I said, guys, in most of the other reviews, you gotta have good cards, you gotta have bad cards. This one's kind of lower on the scale towards the bad cards. It does have Improvise, so you can reduce the cost, but a 3/3 for 3 vanilla when we're getting 3/3s for 3 that have abilities on them. I'd rather play those. Even, and that's if you can cast it for 3. There's lots of times where you're going to pay 4 for this, and there might even be some times where you have to pay 5 for this, and that just kind of feels bad. So if your pool is really dry, you might play this, or if you have a really big number of artifacts, you might play this, but hopefully you pull better cards for your sake. Gonti's Aether Heart. This one's really interesting. Loved Gonti in Kaladesh Limited. That was so much fun. But his Aether Heart is 6 generic mana for a mythic legendary artifact. Whenever Gonti's Aether Heart or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you get 2 energy counters. Pay 8 energy counters and exile Gonti's Aether Heart. I screwed up a couple times. Exile Gonti's Aether Heart. Take an extra turn after this one. So the fact that you have to exile it is good, right? We're not breaking things. We can't bring it back with Refurbish or something and do it again. I can see the... oh, geez. There's the artifact where you get energy for casting cards, basically. I can see maybe 2 of these going into that deck. Or into just if a big energy strategy becomes a thing once Aether Revolt really comes on its own in the standard. Then this would definitely go in there. Taking extra turns is always fun. That's in our top 3 magic phrases, right up there with draw a card. The fact that it does cost 6 mana, but you can have 6 energy in my bank, play Gonti's Aether Heart, pay an energy, take another turn right then. So seems like it could be good in a controlling deck. If I have some way to get energy, it could be played in there. So again, I would only play this in limited if you have your big energy strategy set out and good to go. If not, then just leave it. Taking an extra turn is a really powerful thing to do, but if you don't have the cards to enable it, if you have 4 cards that make energy and they total 8 energy, including this, you're gonna have to play all of them in order to set it off, right? Like you could if you got our Consulate Turret and this card. Okay, then maybe you main deck your turret, so you get energy, 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 Aether Heart, yay, extra turn. But that's a lot of work for this. Extra turn can be good, but I want to take an extra turn and then win the game on an extra turn is what I want to do. But that's me. So Limited has its places, is not necessarily just an auto play in Limited, even though it's a really powerful card, and could see some standard play as well. Heart of Kiran, though, this going to see some standard play. Heart of Kiran is a 2 generic mana, mythic legendary artifact vehicle. It's a 4/4 when it becomes crewed. It has flying and vigilance. It is a crew 3, but you may also remove a loyalty counter from a planeswalker you control rather than pay Heart of Kiran's crew cost. So that's real good. So you can remove that counter on your opponent's turn, because it's just a crew cost, and you can pay the cost at any point you can, which is instant speed. So you can pay that crew cost on your opponent's turn, block with it, and you can pay it on plus your planeswalker on your turn, and minus it to crew this, attack with it. So this guy is going to see standard play. If you get it in limited or sealed, congratulations, because you should play it. I did see one gentleman who at my pre-release who got it and didn't play it. No, sorry. He said he got it. He said, oh yeah, I didn't play that. He had it in his deck, he just never drew it. Sorry. Don't mean to disparage the local community. But he had it in his deck, but he just never saw it, unfortunately, all day. But we've all had that story, right? So, but Heart of Kiran, just really good card is good. Hope of Girper, 1 generic mana for a rare legendary artifact creature, Thopter. It is 1/1 and is flying. Sacrifice Hope of Girper until your next turn. Target player who is dealt combat damage by Hope of Girper this turn can't cast non-creature spells. So how that works, you're going to attack them with Hope of Girper, sacrifice it, and then until your next turn, that your opponent can't cast non-creature spells. They can't board wipe, they can't kill something, they can't cast planewalkers. They can play creatures, but that's it. Play land and creatures. That's all they can do. So it's not Xantid Swarm, but it's pretty good for our standard, I think. This is the card that control decks do not want to see, because like I said, you're going to be running maybe 4 creatures total in control decks. and you're going to want to kill this as soon as you can if you're playing one of those decks. But Hope of Gearper is a good card. I would play it. It's a 1/1 flying. It has a cool little ability on it. You also can trigger Revolt at will. You don't necessarily have to use it for its ability. You can trigger a cool Revolt effect if you have, because its ability isn't going to be as big in Limited, because you're going to play mostly creatures in Limited. But Standard, it's going to see Standard play as well. So Hope of Gearper is a solid card, whether you open it in Limited or make a constructed deck with it. So Implement of Examination. So we're going to start our Implement cycle here. This is the first one. It's 3 generic mana for a common artifact that has blue, sacrifice Implement of Examination, draw a card. And then all of the implements have the line, when an Implement of Examination is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. So if you discard it, you don't get a draw card. If you somehow you mill it, you don't get a draw card. It has to go from the to the graveyard from the field. Some people talk about how this is, overcosted divination. I see it as divination plus setting off my Revolt, plus possibly paying for improvise. Because to sacrifice it, you don't have to tap it. So I can use it to pay for improvise until I don't need it anymore. At any point, instant speed, I can sack it to draw 2 cards for this, because it's the blue one. You get to draw a card, and then you get to draw a card when the ability goes off. I think this is possibly one of the better. There's a whole cycle in all 5 colors. I think this is possibly the best one, to be honest. And I would play it in Limited 100% of the time. Possibly Standard, that's one thing I'm not sure about, because they aren't super duper powerful. And I don't necessarily think that blue needs the improvise as much in its standard decks, but like someone like the white one, well, maybe not the white one, the black one might, because if you want to set off your Revolt for that deck, or maybe the green one might, but honestly I think there's better cards you can do that kind of stuff with that we'll see you can do. But Limited, I would play these if they're in my color almost every time. Implement of Combustion is the red one. This, in my opinion, might be one of the worst ones, but it's generic mana for a red, or for a common artifact that has red. Sacrifice it, deal 1 damage to target player. Not even creature, just player. When it puts in the graveyard and battlefield, draw a card. So it's draw in red, and if you want to set off any Revolt you have, or improvise, same thing there. So again, good and Limited in your color. Yeah, I would still play this if I was the red deck. I would still play one. I'm just a little bit less excited about the red one than some others. Implement of Ferocity is 1 generic mana for a common artifact and has green. Sacrifice it, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So you can't combat trick, sack this, and grow a creature. But still fine. Like we saw when we were looking at our green cards, how many things depended on having counters on things. Like you had that one card that said put counters on everything that already has a counter on it. So this is another way to do that. And in green, we saw how many really good Revolt effects there are. Revolt effects that there are. And also, you get a draw card. So 2 mana, put a counter on something. Ideally, trigger your Revolt and draw a card, which is solid for green. Again, if you get one in your colors, I would play one. Just because they're decent effects. They're draw a card, they replace themselves, and the effects are not nothing. Implement of Improvement is 1 generic mana for a common artifact that has white. Sacrifice it, you gain 2 life, and of course draw a card. I played this in my white deck. That's set off my Revolt whenever I wanted it to. I gained 2 life, and I draw a card. I was always happy to play it again. So, Implement of Malice. This is the one I would put up there with the blue card, because it's kind of the opposite effect. Card advantage, again, for you, because you're getting rid of your opponents. 2 generic mana for this one. For a common artifact that has black, sacrifice it. Target player discards a card. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So you can't do it like before their main phase. You can't do it on their draw step. So they draw, and then you can't sacrifice this before they can play their card, right? When Implement of Malice put in your graveyard and battlefield, draw a card. So 3 mana, they discard a card, you draw a card, 2 card swing for 3 mana, and again, triggers Revolt and Improvise and all your fun stuff that way. Again, if you're in black, I would gladly play a copy. Inspiring Statuary. It's 3 generic mana for a rare artifact that says non-artifact spells you cast have Improvise. So again, if I would play this again if you have like an artifact heavy deck. So if you're playing a couple of implements, you have a few artifact creatures, because they're like we've been over. There are some good ones, a couple of vehicles. I would gladly have this because it just helps you cast all your other spells, really, right? Because you can tap your implements. That doesn't take anything away from them. You're not using them to do anything else for tapping. So it's just going to help you cast your big monster creatures. I would gladly do that. Standard, I have seen some brews with this in Standard already. Definitely, like, this lets you cost reduce all the rest of the spells in your deck. That seems good. If this is... The thing is, this primarily is going to be one of the harder to fuel cost reduction mechanics. Because it's not Cascade. It's not just, you know, you overpay a little bit for the thing, but then you get a free thing. It's not pay some life for it and get a really good effect, and you can still have your mana to play with. It's also not, you know, have a bunch of fetch lands in your graveyard, and you can exile them to draw a bunch of cards or to counter something, or to grow something huge, or whatever you're going to do. You need to have artifacts in the battlefield for improvise to happen. So it's going to be a more difficult cost reduction mechanic to make work, but still could be really, really powerful, and this gives it to everything in your deck, which seems good. So I've seen some standard brews with it. I would play it, you know, because if nothing else, this is going to help you cast your other spells. It turns itself into something that you can tap to help cast your spells, because it has improvise, gives everything improvise, and it's an artifact. Iron Tread Crusher is a 4 generic mana for a common artifact 6/6 with crew 3. This is your mediocre vehicle. I know, 4 mana for a 6/6. Well, my goodness. Don't think of it that way, because you do have to tap 3 powers worth of creatures to crew it, right? And it doesn't have trample, doesn't have flying, doesn't have first strike, no menace, no evasion like that. So you can chop it with a 1/1 servo when it stops, right? So not my favorite. There are plenty of other vehicles, but it would be iffy for me to put it in. Like, if you do have a lot of like 3/2s, because we saw a few of those, I'd consider it, but I would prefer to play better vehicles. Life Crafter's Bestiary is 3 generic mana for a rare artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay green. If you do, draw a card. This is going to be a really good card advantage engine for green. Because if nothing else, and like these are good in multiples, because then you have multiple scry triggers at the beginning of your upkeep. Whenever you cast a spell, you pay green mana if you do draw a card. All your creatures until the end of the game have kicker, green, draw a card. Look at it that way, right? It's not always, oh, then it's this additional cost, da-da-da. Just look at it like it's printed on your card, right? Because that's essentially what it is. When you cast a creature spell, so I'm going to cast this, do I want to pay green? Yeah, I'll pay green, draw a card. That seems real good. So I really like Lifecrafter's Bestiary. It could go into our Abzan deck that we were talking about. But I have seen some brews about it in Standard already. If you're playing a significantly green, or not, you don't have to, it's not even a green creature deck, I would play this in my limited. Helps you set off improvise, card advantage. If you're playing green at all, do this 100% in your limited and draft pools. Merchant Stockhand we'll get that out of the way, is a 1 generic mana rare artifact creature construct for it's a 1/2. You can pay 3 and a blue and tap it. Tap X untapped artifacts you control. Look at the top X cards of your library, put one of them in your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. I'm kind of iffy on this. It can be real good because it lets you filter through and look for some of your best artifacts, but you have to be real artifact heavy. Like because you have to tap this guy and X. So say you have 3 servos, but then you're tapping 4 creatures to go looking. Granted, you should do that at the end of your opponent's turn, but if I have that many creatures out already, either the board stalled and I'm looking for an answer, which is good, or the board's stalled and I'm just digging through my deck for I don't know. Can be good in a spot, but again, if you have a real artifact heavy pool, it could be good, and even then could be good. So because it's just a 1/2. I know I don't want to be this guy that dies to shock, so it can be. It's the thing. Merchant Stockhand, if you have an artifact heavy pool, definitely play it, but I don't see it going into any kind of constructed formats. Metallic Mimic is 2 generic mana for an artifact creature shapeshifter at rare. It is a 2/1. As Metallic Mimic enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Metallic Mimic is the chosen type in addition to its other types. So it is a shapeshifter and a human, shapeshifter and a thopter, whatever you want to have. Each other creature you control of chosen type enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So there's been some rumblings about this going into a humans deck, like a black-white humans deck, like there kind of was at the beginning of the last standard with like Thalia's Lieutenant. This is kind of reverse of that. Thalia's Lieutenant, I believe it was, whenever you played a human, it got a counter, and whenever it entered, all your other humans got a counter, I believe. So what this does is whenever a human enters, it enters with a counter, and then the Lieutenant would also get a counter from a human entering. So could be good in any kind of tribal deck. It's going to be really good. So of course if you have a commander tribal deck, this is going to go in there. Might see some standard play. Like I said, I've seen some brews, and if you have, I would play it in a limited pool, especially if you notice, okay, I have like 5 or 6 humans or even more maybe, or oh, I got a bunch of Aetherborn or rogues or any kind of creature type. If you notice a consistency like that, you can kind of craft the deck around Mimic and make it a bit of a bomb, really. So good card in limited, and seeing some standard brews, which could be interesting. Mobile Garrison is 3 generic mana for a common artifact vehicle. It's a 3/4, has crew 2. Whenever it attacks, untap another target artifact or creature you control. I liked this one. I played with this, and I really enjoyed it, because I got to attack with crew and attack with my Mobile Garrison, and then untap the thing I crewed it with. That seemed good. Or even, you know, attack and then untap something that attacked. So, you can't untap it. You can untap like another attacking creature or the thing that crewed this, but I really liked it. I don't think it's good enough to see any kind of constructed play, but I definitely liked it for my limited environment. It was a solid card. Again, there are better ones out there, but this to me is one of the top tier common vehicles. So, Night Market Guard. Try not to let too much accent come through. It's 3 generic mana for a common artifact creature construct. It is a 3/1. Night Market Guard can block an additional creature each combat. So this is going to trade with 2 things, hopefully, right? It's 1 toughness, so whatever it blocks, it's going to die, but hopefully it trades with 2 things. You know, it's going to kill their 2/2 and their servo, you know, or it's going to kill their 2/3 that's attacking, you know. But some of the guys were saying when I was at my limited thing, I didn't, but it has the potential for 2 for 1. An opponent will see that and possibly, it's almost kind of like playing a Death Touch guy, and that it can hold something, an opponent back for a few turns, and that's good. But again, this would probably be one of my, like, just to sneak under, you know, as my 15th creature kind of thing. It would just sneak under the cut line for me. Not seeing anything in standard for it though. Ornithopter. It's back. Love this art, first of all. Little girl's so happy. She's flying her Ornithopter. 0 mana. It's a free. Oh my goodness, it's free. For an uncommon artifact creature, Thopter. It's a 0/2 flyer. I don't want to say it's a trap, but it's kind of a trap. It blocks Thopters all day, like 1/1 Thopters all day. But people think Ornithopter, they think Affinity. You're not playing Affinity. Sorry, but you're not. It's Ornithopter in the history has been a good card, but every time I saw it drop to the pre-release, it did nothing because it's a 0/2. It can't crew anything. You know, I know, dies to a lot of removal, and it seemed very weak because it's a free 0/2. It's reprinted because it's very flavorful and in the set, but I don't think. I could be wrong on the standard part. I don't think it's going to standard. It'd be cool to see a foil of this in plain Infinity. You know, people like to blend the old stuff, but the new hotness can be nice sometimes too. Pacification Rate is a really good card. It's 1 generic mana for a uncommon artifact. This has 2 tap target artifact creature. This is going to be removal for you a lot. I would play this. I would play at least 1 of these, maybe 2. Because reason I would play 2 is because I want to for sure get 1. Because it's just onboard removal. You know, your opponent says move to combat. I say okay, tap down your biggest thing every time. And even if the match starts to turn around, you can even use it on offense. Say okay, I'm going to tap your big blocker. I'm going to attack with my big dude. You're going to block and let your little dudes die. Or you're going to take 6. You know, so I would possibly play 2 because I for sure want to see at least 1, right? Because it's just onboard removal. It's good. I'm not going to see any play in standard, but limited. This is can be pretty powerful. Paradox Engine can also be pretty powerful. 5 generic mana for a mythic legendary artifact. When you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents you control. All your stuff has vigilance as long as you play something in your second main phase. Your Pacification Rate can untap to tap something else. And anything in between. This, I think, we'll see standard play. Somebody's going to break it in standard play. I just have that feeling. I can see this getting banned in Commander, even, because this kind of effect is really powerful for that, and I think some cards have gotten banned for this kind of thing before. So, it seems a little expensive to push past standard. Limited, if you have... I would play it limited, 5 mana, and because it's a stupid powerful effect. Your stuff gets pseudo-vigilance, and as long as you cast a spell. Okay, that's pretty easy to do when you're playing Magic. So, good card, gonna see play in standard. Limited, I'd play it as well. So, Peacewalker Colossus is 3 generic mana for a rare artifact vehicle. It's a 6/6 when it has crew 4. But the key thing on this thing says generic mana and a white. Another target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until the end of turn. So again, I would play Consulate Dreadknot, maybe if I also got one of these. Again, you're probably not going to crew this. You're playing this so that you can crew your other vehicles, right? Crew your more evasive vehicles, stuff like that. That's why, personally, I would play a Peacewalker Colossus anyway. I don't think it'll see play in Standard, because just having that onboard effect that can be killed isn't always great. I would just rather crew stuff with creatures that can then also attack and do other things. But Peacewalker Colossus, I would play copy and limited if I got a few good vehicles, because it's just another way to turn on that you don't have to tap down your creatures for. So, Planar Bridge is real pretty, especially in the Masterpiece, if you ever saw that one. 6 generic mana for a mythic legendary artifact. It says 8 mana tap, search your library for a permanent card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. This is really pushing it for me. You gotta have a really control-y, dirtily deck in limited in order to play this, because 8 mana tap, do a thing, do the best thing. Granted, do the best thing for the situation right now. Is good, but what it doesn't do, it doesn't find your removal. It finds you, well, not all your removal. Like, it doesn't find Daring Demolition. It doesn't find that. It doesn't find Fatal Push. It finds, like, Caught in the Brights. It's a permanent card. Finds that kind of thing, or finds your best creature, but it doesn't kill their best thing always, right? So paying 14 mana, granted over 2 turns, in order to look for a really good thing might not always be worth it. In control decks, maybe, but even then it seems really expensive for standard, even for control decks. Paying 8 mana is just... because you want to keep mana up for a kill spell or for a counter, and if I pay 8 mana, I might not be able to do that, and I'm iffy about this one. I might not even play this in limited, to be fair with you. I'm usually a little more aggressive than this card is costed. So, Prizefighter Construct is 5 generic mana for a common artifact creature construct. It's a 6/2. I wouldn't. This is going to trade down a lot. You're going to attack. They're going to block with their 2/3. This is going to die. Just doesn't feel real good quite a bit. So, like I said, I got these in my limited pool, in my sealed pool. I didn't play them. Renegade Map, I did play a couple of these. It's 1 generic mana for an artifact common. Renegade Map enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it, sacrifice Renegade Map, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. Expedition Map was broke, apparently, so they have the Renegade Map instead. It's just real good. It's your fixing. It's awesome fixing, first of all. You can keep a hand with land. Say you're playing a 3-color deck, you can play your Swamp turn 1, sack this, play your Island, and then play your Plains. And you have all 3 colors, and you're good. Also, this lets you trade, even if this is in your hand, if you're playing a Revolt deck, sets off Revolt at will, just tap, sack, Revolt. For free, you don't have to pay any mana. It's a free kicker to make your Revolt go off on your turn. So, Renegade Map, I would definitely play, maybe even 2 copies in a limited deck, especially if you're doing 3-color. I would definitely play 2 if I got them then. Even seeing it making some standard lists coming up as well as people are brewing. So, definitely going to be interesting to look after this guy. Reservoir Walker is 5 generic mana for a common artifact creature construct. It is a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life and get 3 energy. It's okay. 3 life, again, I've talked about this in some of the other videos. 3 life doesn't buy you a turn. 5 or more life tends to buy you a turn. When I gain life, I want to gain a lot of life or a lot of little chunks of life. I want to gain 5 or, you know, drain and gain. I want to have there be a life swing. So this guy, if you're playing an energy deck, I would play that, because those decks can sometimes, if you're playing in like the blue-white or black-blue energy deck, those decks can be a little more dirtily, a little more defensive. But if you're playing like the red-green energy deck, that's really aggressive, using it to pump creatures, this might not do enough, because you want to be on the aggressive side. Paying a 5 mana 3/3 isn't that aggressive. But so in the right deck, this definitely has a place in limited, in those certain kinds of decks. But in standard, it's not nearly good enough, unfortunately. Scrap Trawler has a place in standard, though. 3 generic for a rare artifact creature construct. It is a 3/2. Whenever Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. So keep in mind, so if a token dies, you don't get something because there's nothing lesser than 0. Unless you're a math person. I'm not. But so just if you sack your Expedition Map, you can get an Ornithopter back or another 0-cost thing back. Your Scrap Trawler dies, you can get any 2-drop artifact in your graveyard back into your hand. So I've seen some lists on this in standard. I'm not always 100% keen on returning things to my hand. Maybe I'm just greedy, but if you can start chaining this and like plan, just like how the Cascade decks work back in the day, if you can chain your mana cost properly and do that, then this can really build some value for you. So I would play it. 3 mana 3/2 is fine in limited. I'm glad playing that body, and if you can get some of the other effect off of it, even better. So seen some standard lists, and I'd be more than fine playing it in my limited pool. Servo Schematic is 2 generic mana for an uncommon artifact. When it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless Servo artifact creature token. So this is something you could return with your Scrap Trawler, right? Scrap Trawler dies, put this back in your hand, play it, get another Servo. I'd rather play Servo Expedition, 2 mana, just get 2 servos, just because this would be better if it had some kind of like, even pay 1, sack it, get a servo, or in pay 1, sacrifice servo, pay 1, I need to slow down. So if you play this, you get a servo. I would like this better if it said pay 1 mana, generic mana, sacrifice it, because then you get 3 mana for 2 servos over, you know, a couple different actions. But still, I'd like it better than. I might not play this in limited. I never got one, but even then, if I did, I'd be a little shy about doing it, because I can't remove it at will to set off Revolt. It's just, yeah, I'm not a big fan, unfortunately. Spire of Industry, we are doing our lands. Colorless lands are colorless. Spire of Industry is a rare land. It says tap, add colorless mana, specifically colorless, to your mana pool, or tap, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Activate this ability only if you control an artifact. I'm really excited about this land because I play Lantern Control. In my Lantern Control deck, we play 4 Glimmer Voids right now. Glimmer Void says tap, add any color to your mana pool. Then at the beginning of your end step, if you control no artifacts, sack it. So if I control no artifacts, I have to blow up my land. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try to split 2 of these 2 Glimmer Voids, see how that works. Mostly because I already have 2 of these, so I can just throw them right in. But I'm going to try that, see what happens. So like, I'm already trying it in Modern. I've already seen multiple lists of Standard using this card. The nice thing about it that I like is it's pay 1 life, add mana of any color doesn't matter, or you can just add generic for free if you want, or colorless mana for free if you want. So it's kind of like the Pain Lands. It's actually more versatile than the Pain Lands. So why wouldn't you play this instead of the Pain Lands, in my opinion? But probably because it'd be more expensive to buy this, but you know, that's just my argument for it anyway. So limited, 100%, this is your fixing. Standard, it's already in lists. Modern, it's in my list already, so really good card. I would pick up a playset. I already have 2. I'm hopefully we'll see my box opening that we'll film tomorrow. Maybe I'll get another 2. We'll see. Treasure Keeper is 4 generic mana for an uncommon artifact creature construct. When it dies, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card with converted mana cost 3 or less. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put all revealed cards not cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. It has Death Cascade. Cascade was kind of the opposite of that. When you cast the spell, or when it entered, sorry, I forget offhand, one of the two, you get a free spell that costs 1 less. So I cast 4 cost, I get to do this until I hit a 3 cost spell and cast that for free, just like that. So this is the same thing, but when it dies. I can definitely see this seeing standard play. Again, if you stagger your mana costs correctly, and have just some really powerful 3-drops, a lot of really powerful 3-drops, and let this cascade into them. Maybe with a sack outlet, maybe with that black-white enchantment, sack something, scry one. That seems good. And you just flip over something that costs 3 that has a really big effect, like one of the expertises. You go into Karyuzev's expertise, and then you cast something off of Karyuzev's expertise as well, and you just got 5 mana of spells because this died. That seems good. Again, Magical Christmas Land, I know, but that's where the potential for this is. Limited, it's 4 mana for a 3/3. I'm fine with that. And if it dies, hopefully you have a 3-drop left in your deck that you can flip over for free. So I definitely play as many of you get as many as you can get of this in your limited pool or draft. Play them, you're gonna have a good time. Universal Solvent is 1 generic mana for a common artifact. It has 7 tap, sacrifice Universal Solvent, destroy target permanent. So if Hell Vault is playable, this is playable, right? Hell Vault, granted, is repeatable, but if you just want to kill thing, you need to kill thing and you need it dead. You can drop this. Granted, it's going to need to be real late game. Our local store here did a Innistrad sealed event where they had 5 packs, like 1 from each set that was based in Innistrad. It was really cool. It was a really good time. They did it on Halloween weekend, and it was lots of fun. But I got a Hell Vault. I'm like, but everybody's, because I never played with Hell Vault before. I came in just after that, and everybody's like, oh, that's so good. So I played it one game. I exiled like 8 or 9 things with it. It was just gross, guys. It was, wow, it was so good. Universal Solvent isn't that because it's not repeatable. But it's, if you have no other removal, you play this. If you have no other removal, not going to make standard, but then maybe as a 1 of. I would not want to play any more than 1. I would only play 1 if I had no other removals. So that should tell you something. Untethered Express. This is the Rhino Train. If you watch the other videos and you've heard me talk about Rhino Train, this is the Rhino Train. 4 generic mana for a uncommon artifact vehicle. It becomes a 4/4, has trample, and has crew 1. So whenever I said you can crew something with a servo, like Rhino Train, this is gross. So you crew it with your servo, it becomes a 4/4 with trample, it attacks, it becomes a 5/5 with trample, and those +1/+1 counters stay on it even when it becomes not crewed, like when it loses its creature type because it's the end of your turn. Oh my goodness, you guys. Trample, like I've said a few times during this review, just pushes damage and death of their creature usually, right? This is one of my top picks for a vehicle, aside from like Heart of Kiran and Aether Sphere Harvester. This is my next top pick for a vehicle out of this set. It's ridiculous, you guys. It was, if you didn't play at the pre-release, oh my goodness, this thing just smashed. It's as good as it looks. It honestly is. Like, I could see this getting a spot in red-white vehicles pretty easily, honestly, because it's their big beast of a guy that's going to trample over stuff. You play a 4/4 that some of the little vehicles can't get over or can't survive one hit from, this guy will. This guy will. Draft multiples, I would play, like, if I only got 3 vehicles in a draft, and there were 3 of these, I'd be fine with that. I'd be very fine with that. First of all, why are people passing me that many? And I'd be fine with that. But a sealed, play all you can get. It's going to see standard play. It's hype. This is the real hype train. Ardar Express was good. You thought that? No, this is the real hype train. Rhino Train is the real hype train. Verdant Otamatone is 2 generic mana for a common artifact creature construct. It is a 1/2. Has 3 generic mana and a green to put a +1/+1 counter on Verdant Otamatone. Now, like I've said in the past, this is probably one of the better automatons because its counter is permanent, right? As opposed to the black one that just got it to end of turn. Granted, like I said before, I'm not going to pump this. I play this on turn 2. I'm not going to pump it on turn 4. I'm only going to pump it if I have absolutely nothing else to do, and even then I'm going to pump it mid-combat, or I'm going to pump it end of my opponent's turn. But I'd rather be building the breadth of my board on turn 4 rather than making this stronger and tougher. But late game, in that board stall, this is that inevitability. You've all seen that clip from The Matrix. This is the sound of inevitability. So eventually that Verdant Automaton is just going to come knocking, right? Especially when you start getting to 8 mana, you can do that twice in a turn. Inevitability. I would play a copy if I was in green, for sure. I think this is one of the few Tomtoms that I would actually play a copy of. Because happy to play it. Not because he's standard, but in my limited, I'd play one of these for sure. Walking Balista is XX for a rare artifact creature construct. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, so kind of sounds like something we've seen before, right? 4 generic mana, put a +1/+1 counter on it, remove a +1/+1 counter from Walking Balista, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Now I have a commander deck that has a card called Deathbringer Thoktar in it, and has the same last couple lines of text. Remove a counter from it, deals 1 damage to target creature or player. However, that thing says whenever something dies, put a counter on it, so I've lots of fun. I machine gun people, and it's great. The good thing about this, so I think this card will see standard play. Hear me out if you're disagreeing, but like the Ornithopter Walker card, it's not as good as that. It's not as good as that. But this thing is a role player in standard. That thing got bigger, relatively cheaply, and exploded into a bunch of flyers, right? This thing doesn't explode into anything. But what this does is I play this, I can even play this on turn 2, but I can play it on turn 4 as a 2/2. Somebody goes to Saheeli Infinite combo with Felidar Guardian, right? But to do that, they have to take Saheeli down to 1 loyalty. So, okay, it's turn 4, they've plus Saheeli, she's at 2 loyalty. Sorry, she's at 4. She -2s to make a copy, right? Okay, oh no, my Walking Balista is a 1/1. Okay, that's fine. Felidar new copy comes in, blinks Saheeli. Saheeli is now at 3 loyalty. They have to -2 Saheeli, she's now at 1 loyalty. I say, okay, in response to you targeting the Guardian with that, I'm going to remove this counter and do 1 damage to Saheeli. So they got it off a couple times. They got a couple copies of the Felidar Guardian, but it's only a 1-power creature. I think they did that on purpose. I think they did see it because they only made it 1 power, and there are ways to stop it. So because of that, you can interrupt that combo with Walking Balista. So because of that, I think it will be a role player in standard, and I mean, if nothing else, you can just keep building it up, and it's just onboard removal as well, that you can do at instant speed in reaction to things. And it has that whole, grenade thrown. So if I'm going to remove a counter from it, that grenade's thrown, somebody says, oh, I'm going to kill it in response, because X counts as 0, you can kill this with Fatal Push, because X counts as 0 for converted mana cost purposes. But, okay, I remove a counter, I threw that counter at somebody like a grenade, they're going to say, okay, well, I kill it, okay, well, the damage still happens. Grenade thrown, it's going to explode. But I would play it in limited. It's going to be real good, especially board stalls. Again, you just build this up, just like our Verdant Automaton, you just build this up. Sound of Inevitability in limited, and a definite role player in standard. Watchful Automaton is 3 generic mana for a 2/2, has 2 in blue, scry 1. 3 mana for a 2/2 is okay. Scry 1's also okay. So in later game, I'm okay with dropping this because I get a look at cards. Not going to see standard, but limited, I might play 1 if I don't have any other good creatures with decent abilities. Again, this is going to be like my 15th to 17th creature kind of thing, just one of the last guys to make the cut. But other than that, I'm not super excited to play it, but it's okay. Like I said, there's really good cards, there's really bad cards, and then there's this card. Welder Automaton is our last card of the Aether Revolt set review. It is 2 generic mana for a common artifact creature construct. It is a 2/1 that says 3, has an ability that says 3 generic mana, and I read Welder Automaton deals 1 damage to each opponent. Again, this, I like the inevitability of this guy. I'll stop flicking back and forth. Better than Welder Automaton, because this creates onboard presence that is going to be harder to kill as the game goes on, versus this guy will always be 1 toughness. If they start putting pressure on me, I'm going to have to block with this guy, and this guy will die when it blocks. If it blocks anything with power, which it will because it has to block it. Versus the Verdant Automaton, can be so big that, okay, block, I'll block, bring it, I'll block all day. My thing will live because it'll be so big. Right, so I like that a little bit better than I like the Welder Automaton, but this could be one of those creatures that if you're stretching for creatures in your red limited deck, this guy could qualify in there. Again, as one of your last guys to make the cut. Not going to see standard, though. Oh, alright, so that was the last card of our Aether Revolt set review. If you enjoyed the videos, please let me know. Comment down below. If you didn't enjoy the videos, what can I do better? Please comment down below for that as well. If you liked the video, please like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know what we're doing here. Gas City Gaming is based in Medicine Hat, Alberta. Smaller town. Really good Magic community, though, still. I've really enjoyed it since I moved here. If you like the channel, subscribe down below as well at twitch.tv/Dave865 or at Dave2619 on Twitter. We'll always announce when we start to stream or when I post a new video. Thanks so much for coming on this ride with me, guys. This is my first set I've ever reviewed like this. I can tell you it is way more work than I thought it was going to be. It really is. I respect all those guys who go online and make the videos before. I was always fans of multiple people, like Evan Irwin. I've followed him for years. I'm doing the set reviews. I actually tweeted him today, like, hey man, I'm filming my own set review. Respect, like, I've always been a fan, but I just have huge, much more, if I could, more respect for you now. So thank you guys so much for coming along on the ride with me. Thanks for spending, if you've watched all the videos, you're awesome. Thanks for spending so much of your time with me today. Really appreciate it. I know there's so many other things you could be doing, but you chose to come here and hang out with me. One last time, have fun with these cards, have fun with this set, and have an awesome, awesome, awesome rest of your day.